Before we dive into the captivating tale of Cleopatra, Egypt's enigmatic queen, let us know your thoughts on her legacy, and subscribe if you believe that true power knows no bounds. In the waning years of the 2nd century before the Common Era, the city of Alexandria stood as a jewel upon the Mediterranean's edge, where the Nile's lifeblood met the sea, its harbor bustling with ships from every corner of the ancient world. Amid the labyrinthine streets and the soaring columns of the royal palace, the air hung thick with the scent of incense and intrigue. It was here, in the heart of Egypt's greatest city, that Cleopatra VII ascended to a throne both dazzling and perilous. The year was approximately 51 BC, and the Ptolemaic dynasty, heirs of Alexander the Great's empire, grappled with the ever-encroaching shadow of Rome. Cleopatra's arrival at the helm of a kingdom teetering on the edge of chaos was marked not by the customary fanfare of a monarch but by a quiet intensity that belied her youth. She was a queen in a world ruled by men, her very presence a challenge to the expectations of gender and power that permeated the Mediterranean world. Alexandria's sprawling palace, with its grandiose halls and opulent chambers overlooking the shimmering waters, became the stage upon which she would perform her delicate dance of sovereignty and survival. Though she was but a young woman, Cleopatra's reputation had already begun to ripple through the courts of Egypt and beyond. Whispers spoke of her captivating presence, a blend of intelligence and charm that ensnared not only the eyes but the ambitions of rulers and diplomats alike. She was said to possess a voice that could soothe or command, eyes that seemed to pierce through the facades of men who thought themselves her equals. Yet it was not mere beauty that defined her, it was a keen political acumen, a mind sharpened by the tutelage of scholars and the harsh lessons of palace intrigue. The queen's domain was one fraught with danger. Egypt, once a powerhouse of the ancient world, now found itself a prize coveted by Rome's expanding republic. Within Alexandria's marble walls, factions vied for influence, and the delicate balance of power could shift with a whisper or a dagger's thrust. Cleopatra understood that to rule was to navigate a labyrinth of alliances and enmities, where loyalty was as transient as the desert wind. Her court was a tapestry of cultures and ambitions, reflecting Alexandria's status as a cosmopolitan hub. Greek and Egyptian priests, Roman envoys, mercenaries, and scholars mingled in an uneasy harmony. Cleopatra, fluent in several languages and versed in the traditions of both her Macedonian ancestry and native Egypt, moved seamlessly among these worlds. She was both an enigma and a symbol, a living embodiment of the fusion of East and West. The young queen's early days on the throne were marked by a careful cultivation of her image. She understood the power of perception, of how a monarch must command not only by decree but by the stories told in the streets and the courts. To the people of Alexandria, she projected the aura of a goddess incarnate, the embodiment of Isis, the divine mother and protector of Egypt. This was no mere vanity, it was a strategic invocation of the sacred, a means to legitimize her rule in the eyes of her subjects. Yet beneath this regal facade lay a woman acutely aware of the precariousness of her position. Cleopatra's rise had not been unchallenged. Her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, shared the throne in name, but their relationship was bitterly competitive, a rivalry that simmered beneath the surface of court ceremonies and public appearances. The queen's every move was shadowed by suspicion and the threat of betrayal. Amid these tensions, Cleopatra's reputation as a seductress began to take shape, not merely as a reflection of her personal allure but as an extension of her political strategy. In an era when women's power was often circumscribed by the men who ruled in their name, Cleopatra wielded her sexuality with a calculated precision. Her ability to captivate powerful men was a tool of statecraft, a way to forge alliances that might secure Egypt's sovereignty against Rome's looming ambition. Her allure was not confined to the private chambers of the palace. Diplomats and emissaries from Rome and other states spoke in hushed tones of the queen who could bend wills with a glance, who negotiated treaties as deftly as a general marshaled armies. Cleopatra's court became a theater where politics and passion intertwined, each encounter laden with the potential to shift the fate of nations. Within Alexandria's labyrinthine streets, the queen's presence was both revered and feared. To some, she was a beacon of hope, a ruler who might restore Egypt's glory. To others, she was a dangerous enchantress, a foreign queen whose ambitions threatened the established order. Roman senators and generals debated her character with a mixture of fascination and contempt, their accounts colored by the biases and anxieties of their own culture. Cleopatra's mastery of image extended beyond mere politics. She was a patron of the arts and sciences, fostering the city's famed library and attracting scholars who sought her favor. Her intellect was as much a weapon as her beauty, and she cultivated a persona that combined wisdom with an almost theatrical flair. Her entrance into the royal court was said to be a spectacle, designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. The queen's ability to navigate the treacherous waters of Alexandria's political landscape was a testament to her resilience and cunning. She was a ruler who understood that power was not static but a living force, one that demanded constant negotiation and reinvention. In a world dominated by Roman legions and Greek philosophers, Cleopatra carved out a space for herself as a leader who defied easy categorization. Her story, at this juncture, is one of beginnings, of a young woman stepping into a role fraught with peril and promise. Cleopatra VII was more than a monarch, she was a symbol of Egypt itself, a land of ancient mystery and unyielding spirit. The tale of her reign would unfold against the backdrop of empire and ambition, seduction and strategy, illuminating the complexities of power in a time when the old world was giving way to the new. As the Nile flowed inexorably to the sea, so too did the currents of history carry Cleopatra toward a destiny that would etch her name indelibly into the annals of time. The Queen of the Nile was poised on the cusp of a saga that would entwine love and war, glory and tragedy, forever shaping the contours of the ancient world. Cleopatra VII's ascent to the throne was not merely a matter of royal succession, it was the culmination of a lineage steeped in the legacies of conquest and cultural fusion. Born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, she was a scion of Greek Macedonian blood, her ancestors having carved out a kingdom in Egypt following the fragmentation of Alexander the Great's empire. This heritage shaped not only her identity but also the very nature of her reign, as she sought to bridge the worlds of Hellenistic tradition and ancient Egyptian custom. From an early age, Cleopatra was immersed in an education befitting a monarch of her caliber. Unlike many of her predecessors, who often relied on tutors and advisors, she took an active role in her own learning, mastering languages that spanned the Mediterranean and beyond. She spoke Greek as her native tongue but was also fluent in Egyptian, the language of the land she ruled, a rarity among the Ptolemies. Her linguistic abilities extended further still, encompassing Aramaic, Hebrew, and perhaps even Ethiopian and Latin, signaling a ruler attuned to the diverse peoples under her dominion. This polyglot queen was not merely versed in tongues but also in the vast cultural tapestries that defined her realm. Alexandria, her capital, was a melting pot of Egyptian, Greek, and Near Eastern influences, a city where the worship of Isis coexisted with the philosophies of Plato and the sciences of Euclid. Cleopatra's understanding of these traditions was profound, allowing her to present herself as a legitimate sovereign in the eyes of both her Greek aristocracy and the native Egyptian populace. She embraced the role of Isis incarnate, aligning herself with the goddess's attributes of fertility, motherhood, and divine protection, thereby securing the spiritual allegiance of her subjects. Cleopatra's path to sole rulership, however, was fraught with familial strife. Upon the death of her father, Ptolemy XII Auletes, the throne was to be shared between Cleopatra and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, as was customary in the Ptolemaic practice of sibling co-regency. Yet this joint sovereignty was anything but harmonious. The young monarchs quickly became embroiled in a bitter rivalry, each backed by factions within the court and the military. Cleopatra's assertiveness and political savvy clashed with Ptolemy XII's ambitions, setting the stage for a civil war that would engulf Egypt's capital. The conflict was not merely a domestic squabble but a struggle with profound implications for Egypt's future. Cleopatra's supporters, including influential courtiers and mercenary commanders, rallied around her vision of a stable and independent Egypt, wary of the increasing Roman interference that shadowed the kingdom. Ptolemy XII's camp, conversely, saw an opportunity to align more closely with Rome's rising power, hoping to secure their own dominance through external alliance. In this volatile atmosphere, Cleopatra's strategic acumen came to the fore. Recognizing that survival required more than internal support, she sought to anchor her reign with foreign alliances, turning her gaze toward Rome, the republic that had become the arbiter of Mediterranean power. It was in this context that her fateful encounter with Julius Caesar would occur, a meeting that would alter the trajectories of both Egypt and Rome. Caesar's arrival in Alexandria in 48 BC, following his pursuit of Pompey in the aftermath of Rome's civil war, presented Cleopatra with a calculated opportunity. Their liaison was not merely a romantic entanglement but a political gambit with high stakes. By aligning herself with Caesar, Cleopatra secured military backing essential to her reclaiming the throne from her brother's faction. The relationship afforded her not only personal protection but also a powerful patron whose influence extended deep into the heart of Roman politics. This alliance was emblematic of Cleopatra's dual reputation, a learned ruler and a seductive temptress. Roman historians and subsequent chroniclers often fixated on her beauty and charm, painting her as a femme fatale who ensnared the great Julius Caesar. Yet such portrayals obscure the strategic dimensions of their partnership. Cleopatra was a sovereign who wielded her intellect and charisma as instruments of statecraft, understanding that to survive in the male-dominated arenas of power she must negotiate both public perception and private influence. Her time alongside Caesar was marked by efforts to consolidate her power and stabilize Egypt's precarious position. She bore him a son, Caesar Ion, symbolizing the merging of Egyptian and Roman destinies, though the boy's status remained a contentious issue in the years to come. Cleopatra's presence in Rome itself, when she visited the city, was a spectacle that challenged Roman sensibilities, her exotic origins and regal bearing captivating and unsettling the Roman elite. Throughout this period, Cleopatra's image in Rome was ambivalent. To some, she was a learned queen who brought the grandeur of Egypt to the heart of the Republic; to others, she was an alluring foreigner, a threat to Roman virtue and stability. This duality underscored the complexities of her reign, as she navigated not only the politics of her own court but also the volatile dynamics of Roman power. Her ability to traverse these cultural and political divides was rooted in a deep understanding of both. Cleopatra was a Hellenistic monarch who embraced Egyptian traditions, a ruler whose education and upbringing enabled her to act as a bridge between worlds. Her co-regency and ensuing conflict with Ptolemy XIII revealed the fragile nature of dynastic rule, where kinship was as often a source of rivalry as of alliance. Amid the turmoil, Cleopatra's personal qualities shone through, a combination of erudition, political insight, and an unyielding will to maintain her sovereignty. She was not a passive figure swept along by events but an active agent shaping them. Her mastery of diplomacy, her linguistic skills, and her cultural fluency allowed her to craft a persona that was both regal and relatable, commanding loyalty from diverse constituencies. The Ptolemaic tradition of sibling co-rule, intended to consolidate power, instead became a crucible for Cleopatra's resilience and determination. Her struggle with Ptolemy XIII was emblematic of the broader challenges facing Egypt in the twilight of its independence. The kingdom's internal divisions mirrored the external pressures exerted by Rome's expansionist ambitions, and Cleopatra's reign would become inseparable from her ability to maneuver within this nexus. As she solidified her position, Cleopatra's reputation as a ruler who combined the learned and the alluring grew. She was a figure who defied easy caricature, embodying both the intellectual rigor expected of a Hellenistic monarch and the seductive power that transcended conventional political means. Her story was one of a queen who wielded every tool at her disposal to protect her realm and assert her authority in a world hostile to female sovereignty. Thus, Cleopatra VII emerged not merely as a figure of myth and legend but as a complex and formidable leader. Her Ptolemaic heritage endowed her with a rich cultural inheritance, while her personal talents and strategic alliances positioned her at the crossroads of history. It was this combination of lineage, learning, and political acumen that enabled her to survive the deadly intrigues of her court and to cast a long shadow over the turbulent era that lay ahead. Cleopatra's reign was defined not only by her claim to Egypt's throne but by the intricate web of relationships she wove across the Mediterranean's shifting political landscape. Her alliances with Rome's most powerful men, Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, were as much acts of survival as they were expressions of her formidable intellect and charisma. These liaisons transcended mere romance; they were calculated maneuvers in a perilous game of empire and influence. After securing her position in Egypt with Caesar's military support, Cleopatra's relationship with the Roman dictator evolved into a partnership that shaped both their fates. Their union was symbolized by the birth of their son, Caesar Ion, a living testament to the fusion of Egyptian royalty and Roman authority. Yet, Cleopatra's presence in Rome was fraught with tension. The Roman Senate watched with wary eyes, uneasy at the spectacle of a foreign queen whose exotic allure and political acumen challenged the established order. To many Romans, Cleopatra was an enigma, a learned sovereign whose beauty was said to bewitch, but whose ambitions threatened the delicate balance of power. Her ability to captivate Caesar was no accident. Cleopatra's allure was a weapon as sharp as any sword, wielded with precision. She understood that in a world dominated by Roman men, her survival hinged on her capacity to manipulate perceptions as deftly as she commanded armies. Her charm and intellect were on full display, a blend of seduction and strategy that left men both enchanted and disarmed. This interplay of personal and political reached a dramatic crescendo with her encounter with Mark Antony, a triumvir of Rome and one of its most formidable generals. Their meeting in Tarsus in 41 BC was a spectacle of theatrical grandeur and calculated diplomacy. Cleopatra arrived upon the city in a barge gilded with gold and adorned with purple sails, an image that fused regal opulence with mythic symbolism. Clad as the goddess Venus, she presented herself not merely as a foreign queen but as a divine embodiment of power and allure. Antony, known for his military prowess and political ambitions, was immediately captivated. Yet their alliance was far from a simple romance. It was a convergence of mutual necessity. Antony sought to secure Egypt's wealth and military resources to bolster his campaigns against Rome's rivals, while Cleopatra required his support to maintain her throne and protect her kingdom from both internal and external threats. Their relationship was a potent amalgam of passion and pragmatism, each aware of the stakes involved. Cleopatra's influence over Antony extended beyond the personal. It shaped the politics of the late Roman Republic. Through her, Antony accessed the riches of Egypt, which funded his armies and emboldened his challenge to Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir and future Augustus. In turn, Cleopatra garnered military aid and political backing crucial to her survival amidst the volatile politics of Alexandria. The queen's mastery of allure and intelligence became a defining feature of this partnership. She was no mere consort but an active participant in the political machinations of the era. Her court in Alexandria became a center of power and intrigue, where diplomacy was conducted with a blend of spectacle and subtlety. Cleopatra's ability to manipulate Roman power brokers, to charm senators and generals alike, underscored her understanding of the complex dynamics at play. Rome itself was divided in its perception of Cleopatra. Propaganda in the Senate painted her as a dangerous foreign seductress, a corrupting influence who undermined Roman virtues and threatened the Republic's stability. Poets and historians depicted her in vivid terms, emphasizing her exoticness and alleged moral depravity. Yet beneath these caricatures lay a more nuanced reality, a queen whose political acumen and personal magnetism made her a formidable actor on the world stage. The alliance with Antony brought Cleopatra into the heart of Roman civil conflict. As Antony's relationship with Octavian deteriorated, Cleopatra's involvement intensified the stakes. Their union was seen by the Roman elite not just as a personal alliance but as a political threat, a challenge to Rome's supremacy and the Republic's fragile peace. Cleopatra's presence at Antony's side blurred the lines between personal loyalty and political allegiance. She accompanied him on military campaigns and influenced his decisions, her counsel shaping the course of events that would culminate in a decisive confrontation with Octavian's forces. Their combined forces clashed at the naval battle of Actium, a confrontation that would determine the fate of empires and the future of Egypt. Throughout this turbulent period, Cleopatra's use of seduction and intellect was inseparable from her political strategy. She wielded her sexuality not as a mere personal indulgence but as a calculated tool to secure alliances and manipulate rivals. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony exemplify how she navigated a male-dominated world, leveraging the very traits that some sought to diminish her for as sources of power. The queen's theatricality extended beyond her arrival in Tarsus. Her public appearances were carefully orchestrated displays of majesty and divinity, designed to awe and command respect. By presenting herself as a living goddess, Cleopatra challenged Roman notions of hierarchy and gender, asserting her authority in ways that unsettled traditional power structures. Cleopatra's political machinations were not limited to her liaisons with Rome's leaders. Within Egypt, she maintained a delicate balance of power, managing court factions and foreign influences with a deft hand. Her ability to combine personal charisma with political savvy allowed her to sustain her rule amid the shifting allegiances and betrayals that characterized the era. The queen's story during this phase is one of a ruler who transcended the roles assigned to her by gender and culture. She was at once a seductress and a sovereign, a diplomat and a strategist, whose alliances with Caesar and Antony were as much about survival and statecraft as passion. Through these relationships, Cleopatra sought to preserve Egypt's independence and secure her legacy in an age dominated by Rome's relentless expansion. Her life became a spectacle of power and desire, where the personal and political were inextricably intertwined. Cleopatra's ability to manipulate the desires of men and the ambitions of empires illustrates the complexities of female authority in a patriarchal world. Her story challenges simplistic portrayals, revealing a queen who harnessed every facet of her being to command influence and shape history. As tensions escalated and the Roman Senate's suspicions grew, Cleopatra's alliances set the stage for the ultimate confrontation that would decide the fate of Egypt and the Mediterranean world. Her strategic use of seduction and intellect, her theatrical entrances and political maneuverings, culminated in a saga that would resonate through the ages, an enduring testament to the power and peril of a queen who dared to stand at the crossroads of empire. The twilight of Cleopatra VII's reign unfolded amid the ruins of shattered alliances and the inexorable rise of a new power destined to reshape the Mediterranean world. The fateful Battle of Actium in 31 BC was not merely a clash of fleets but a symbolic turning point, the final confrontation between the forces of Cleopatra and Mark Antony and the rising tide of Octavian, Rome's future first emperor. This defeat marked the collapse of the queen's political fortunes and heralded the end of an era. Following their naval loss, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Egypt, their once formidable alliance now fractured and vulnerable. The Roman Senate, under Octavian's sway, unleashed a propaganda campaign that vilified Cleopatra as the foreign seductress who had corrupted Antony and imperiled Rome. Roman historians like Plutarch and Cassius Dio echoed these sentiments, portraying her as a dangerous enchantress whose ambitions threatened the very foundations of the Republic. This vilification was not merely political rhetoric but a concerted effort to justify Rome's conquest and delegitimize Egyptian sovereignty. As Octavian's forces advanced upon Alexandria, the city's grandeur became a stage for tragedy. Cleopatra's court, once vibrant with the promise of power and alliance, grew tense with fear and resolve. The queen, undeterred by the encroaching doom, prepared for a final act that would immortalize her legacy. It was within these walls that Cleopatra faced the collapse of her dreams and the enormity of her predicament. The queen's demise has been enveloped in myth, most famously the tale of the asp's bite, a serpent's venom delivering a swift and symbolic death. Ancient accounts vary, some suggesting she orchestrated her own suicide to avoid the humiliation of capture and parading through Rome as a prisoner. This act of defiance was not merely personal but political, a final assertion of autonomy in the face of conquest. Cleopatra's death in 30 BC marked the definitive end of Ptolemaic rule and the absorption of Egypt into the Roman Empire. The aftermath of her death saw a systematic effort to erase her from history, a damnatio memoriae imposed by Rome to obscure her influence and diminish her legacy. Yet, paradoxically, Cleopatra's story endured, her life and death woven into the fabric of cultural memory as a figure both reviled and revered. The Roman narratives, steeped in misogyny and imperial bias, often reduced her to a caricature, a dangerous woman whose sexuality undermined male power. These portrayals have shaped centuries of interpretation, casting Cleopatra alternately as a villainous temptress or a tragic heroine. Modern scholarship has sought to peel back these layers of propaganda, revealing a more nuanced figure. Cleopatra emerges as a sovereign navigating the complexities of empire and gender, a queen whose political acumen and cultural hybridity challenged the patriarchal structures of her time. Her legacy is one of resilience and adaptation, embodying the tensions between East and West, tradition and innovation. Cleopatra's life invites reflection on the intersection of power, gender, and cultural identity. In a world where male rulers wielded overt military might and political authority, her mastery of diplomacy, performance, and alliance-making stands as a testament to alternative forms of power. Her story complicates the narratives of conquest and empire, highlighting how a woman from a Hellenistic dynasty could command influence in an era dominated by Roman expansion. The queen's enduring image, as a figure of beauty, intellect, and tragic grandeur, continues to captivate imaginations. Her life and death symbolize the end of the Hellenistic age and the dawn of Roman imperial dominance, a poignant marker of historical transition. Cleopatra's saga is a reminder of the fragility of power and the indomitable spirit of a ruler who dared to defy the tides of history, leaving an indelible imprint on the ancient world and the collective memory of humanity. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.